Humanity has long believed itself to be the origin of knowledge, innovation, and culture, the first spark in a world of untamed potential. Yet beneath this perception lies a deeper truth. The legacy we inherit may be far older, shaped by civilizations, technologies, and wisdom that preceded our own. From buried cities and encoded symbols to genetic memory and celestial observation, the Earth preserves a vast continuum of intelligence and adaptation, waiting to be deciphered by those capable of understanding it. Every tool, structure, ritual, and insight we possess may be a continuation rather than a beginning, a link in an unbroken chain connecting distant ancestors to the present. In exploring the evidence etched into the land, embedded in our very DNA, and written across the sky, one finds a compelling possibility. Humanity may not have begun the story, but has emerged as the successor, carrying forward the achievements, lessons, and knowledge of countless generations that came before. High on a windswept plateau, the Earth stretches in every direction, dotted with jagged stone formations and the winding traces of rivers carved over millennia. The landscape radiates a sense of permanence, as if it has existed unchanged for tens of thousands of years, silently recording the passage of time. Beneath this serene surface, layers of history lie hidden, offering a narrative in which humanity is not the beginning, but the latest inheritor of intelligence, artistry, and culture. The world itself bears witness to civilizations that rose and vanished, leaving remnants that endure in stone, soil, and sky. Humanity, in this sense, is a successor entrusted with a legacy that extends far beyond the scope of recorded memory. Across the continents, evidence of extraordinary achievement emerges from the shadows of time. Megalithic structures in Egypt, Peru, and the British Isles display levels of precision that suggest not mere ingenuity, but mastery of geometry, astronomy, and engineering. The pyramids of Giza align with the stars of Orion. Massive stone circles track solstices with unerring accuracy, and underground passageways reflect a knowledge of structural stability that modern engineers still study. These achievements, often attributed to the creativity of early humans, also carry the mark of inheritance, a continuity of knowledge from civilizations whose histories were interrupted by catastrophe or the inexorable passage of time. The rhythm of evolution itself supports the notion of succession. Life on Earth unfolds in cycles, with species appearing, adapting, dominating, and disappearing. Entire ecosystems have been reshaped countless times, leaving fossils, DNA, and subtle ecological traces. Intelligence and culture follow a similar arc, appearing, flourishing, and sometimes vanishing, only to re-emerge in new forms. Advances in architecture, metallurgy, mathematics, and astronomy that appear suddenly in the archaeological record can be understood not as isolated leaps, but as rediscoveries of knowledge preserved across generations, or through remnants of earlier civilizations. Civilization, in this context, is not a straight line but a layered process of inheritance and adaptation. Myth and legend serve as enduring testimony to these ancestral memories. Across cultures, stories recount beings who walked among humans, teaching knowledge, crafting society, and shaping the environment. The Sumerian Anunnaki, the Egyptian Thoth, the Mesoamerican Quetzalcoatl, and countless other figures embody the presence of predecessors whose achievements linger in human memory. Recurrent motifs appear across time and geography: floods that reshape landscapes, wisdom passed down in secret, civilizations rising to brilliance and falling into ruin. These narratives preserve fragments of history, carrying echoes of those who came before, and embedding them into the consciousness of successive generations. Human biology reflects a similar continuity. The human brain, capable of abstract thought, language, and complex problem-solving, represents the culmination of evolutionary pressures stretching across millions of years. Every neuron and synapse embodies adaptations refined over countless generations. Humanity's intellectual potential is not a sudden emergence, but the product of inherited capacities shaped by the interaction of biology, environment, and the cultural echoes of predecessors. Successive waves of civilization may have molded not only societies, but the very minds capable of sustaining them. Artifacts and constructions often appear in the archaeological record fully formed, with no clear developmental trajectory. Tools, inscriptions, and monumental architecture suggest a depth of knowledge that surpasses what humans could have independently developed at the time. These anomalies hint at the persistence of understanding across generations, preserved either through lost texts, oral traditions, or physical monuments. The rediscovery of such knowledge by later societies reinforces the vision of humanity as a continuation of a story older than the species itself, a story written in stone, metal, and the landscapes of the earth. Cultural and technological continuity extends beyond physical artifacts. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and art appear in distant civilizations with surprising similarity, often emerging independently, but resonating with a shared structure. The appearance of sophisticated numerical systems in Mesopotamia and the Americas, advanced astronomical calculations in Egypt and India, and architectural precision in multiple unconnected regions reflect the survival of knowledge through time. Successors do not begin anew. They inherit, adapt, and expand upon insights preserved through generations, bridging gaps left by lost civilizations. The Earth itself bears enduring marks of these predecessors. Megalithic monuments, terraced landscapes, irrigation networks, and ancient roads reveal a sophisticated understanding of natural forces and engineering principles. The careful alignment of structures with celestial events and the use of durable materials demonstrate both foresight and technical mastery. These constructions are not mere relics. They are enduring testaments to the capabilities of civilizations that existed long before the rise of modern humans. Humanity continues to occupy and interact with a world shaped by these ancient hands, navigating a legacy that is both practical and intellectual. The inheritance extends into intangible dimensions as well. Oral traditions, religious practices, and early scripts carry encoded knowledge, preserving insights into governance, philosophy, and cosmology. The cumulative wisdom embedded in these cultural forms provides guidance, shaping societal evolution and informing human understanding of the world. Humanity's ability to synthesize, innovate, and expand upon this knowledge is evidence of a continuum of learning, demonstrating that intelligence is preserved not only in matter, but in memory, language, and culture. In all its dimensions, this inheritance forms a profound chain linking the past to the present. Humanity emerges not as an isolated phenomenon, but as the latest node in an intricate web of predecessors. Every discovery, every artifact, every tradition contributes to a tapestry of continuity, connecting human experience to civilizations that existed long before recorded history. The story of humanity is thus inseparable from the story of what came before, forming a foundation upon which the present is built and the future will continue. Across the sprawling landscapes of the ancient world, traces of extraordinary intelligence emerge in forms both subtle and monumental. Deep within the fertile valleys of the Nile, the Andes, and the Tigris-Euphrates, evidence appears of societies capable of reshaping the environment with precision and foresight. Terraced fields, aqueducts, irrigation systems, and road networks reveal sophisticated planning, engineering, and resource management that could only be accomplished by generations of meticulous observation and experimentation. These accomplishments hint at architects of civilization whose names and deeds have been lost to time, leaving only their creations as testimony to a mastery that endured far longer than human memory. In the heart of the deserts and highlands, stone and clay structures stand in deliberate arrangement, aligned with the movement of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the passage of the stars. These alignments are not mere coincidence, but deliberate inscriptions of cosmic understanding upon the earth. The builders were not simply constructing shelters or monuments. They were encoding knowledge into the landscape itself. The placement of each stone, the orientation of each passage, and the scale of each monument reflects an awareness of celestial patterns and environmental forces that suggests a civilization both advanced and deeply observant of natural law. The level of technical sophistication found in early construction often surpasses what was previously thought possible. Stones weighing tens of tons, quarried and transported across vast distances, fit together with such precision that even modern tools struggle to replicate the craftsmanship. Ancient engineers understood principles of leverage, balance, and structural integrity that modern science would only formalize millennia later. These achievements imply a lineage of knowledge, a continuum in which techniques and insights were preserved, transmitted, and perfected across generations. Civilization, in this sense, was not a series of isolated experiments, but a continuum of learning and application, shaped by architects whose legacy outlasted their names. Water management was central to the survival and flourishing of these societies. Canals, reservoirs, and irrigation networks demonstrate a nuanced understanding of hydrology, soil composition, and seasonal cycles. In Mesopotamia, intricate canal systems diverted rivers to sustain agriculture across dry plains. In the Andean highlands, terraced fields captured and distributed rainfall with precision, maintaining soil fertility and preventing erosion. These feats reflect planning on a scale that required coordination, long-term vision, and the capacity to integrate environmental observation into practical engineering. The architects of these systems were not merely builders. They were environmental strategists, capable of harmonizing human activity with the rhythms of the earth. Even the tools they left behind reveal an extraordinary level of innovation. Metalworking, pottery, and carving techniques show deliberate experimentation and refinement. Bronze and copper tools shaped stone with remarkable efficiency, while ceramic vessels demonstrate understanding of heat distribution, material composition, and durability. These technological advancements were not isolated inventions, but part of a broader system of knowledge, in which each discovery reinforced the next. The continuity of innovation indicates that these architects of civilization transmitted their understanding to successors, embedding practical intelligence into every aspect of daily life. The social structures supporting these achievements were equally sophisticated. Large-scale projects such as the construction of pyramids or urban centers required coordination across communities, planning for labor, resource allocation, and long-term maintenance. Governance was intertwined with technical expertise, creating systems that ensured both stability and adaptability. Hierarchies of knowledge and responsibility emerged, preserving the wisdom of builders and engineers across generations. Civilization was a collaborative endeavor, sustained not only by ambition, but by the careful stewardship of inherited understanding. Astronomy played a pivotal role in the lives of these early architects. Observations of celestial cycles informed agricultural planning, navigation, and ritual practice. Stone observatories, sun temples, and aligned monuments served as tools to map the heavens, translating cosmic patterns into practical knowledge. The builders encoded this understanding into structures that endured for millennia, allowing successors to inherit a form of celestial literacy that shaped calendars, seasonal cycles, and cultural rituals. This inheritance demonstrates that knowledge, once codified into physical form, can survive the loss of the original civilization and continue to influence generations to come. Artistic expression intertwines seamlessly with function and observation. Murals, carvings, and sculptural works depict not only aesthetic sensibilities, but also narratives of cosmology, ancestry, and natural phenomena. Symbolic language recorded in art conveyed cultural memory, technological knowledge, and social organization. Successive generations decoded and adapted these visual languages, integrating inherited knowledge into their own practices. Civilization was therefore preserved not only in stone and metal, but in imagery and symbolism, embedding intelligence into the very perception of the world. Trade networks extended the influence of these architects far beyond their immediate domains. Raw materials, finished goods, and specialized knowledge traveled across deserts, mountains, and oceans, connecting distant communities. This diffusion of resources and expertise reflects the recognition that survival and prosperity depended on collaboration and exchange. Civilization was not localized. It was a networked phenomenon, reinforced by movement, communication, and the careful preservation of techniques that could be shared, taught, and improved upon. The legacy of the forgotten architects extends into modern observation. Contemporary scholars, engineers, and archaeologists continue to uncover principles embedded in ancient constructions, from stress distribution in stone walls to water management techniques that remain effective today. These discoveries reveal that ancient builders were not isolated practitioners of craft, but sophisticated thinkers whose insights resonate across millennia. Humanity inherits not only the physical structures, but the principles, the processes, and the intellectual framework that allowed these creations to endure. Every surviving structure, every fragment of tool or inscription, stands as a reminder that civilization is cumulative, built by countless hands over long stretches of time. The architects may have vanished, but their understanding persists in the rhythms of daily life, in the management of resources, and in the intellectual frameworks that guide societies. The Earth carries the imprint of this continuity, a record of human endeavor intertwined with the work of civilizations that came before, preserving knowledge in a form that can be observed, learned from, and extended by successors. Across the ancient world, evidence emerges of technologies that seem astonishingly advanced, even by today's standards. In the deserts of Egypt, the mountains of Peru, and the river valleys of Mesopotamia, tools and structures reflect a deep understanding of engineering, material science, and energy management that often surpasses conventional expectations of early human capability. These innovations were not isolated inventions, but the products of systematic knowledge preserved and adapted over generations. What survives today, stone tools, metal implements, architectural marvels, reveals a sophisticated intelligence at work, a continuity of technical mastery that has long been forgotten, but continues to shape the foundation of human civilization. Stone carving, in particular, demonstrates the skill and precision of ancient artisans. Massive blocks, some weighing tens of tons, were quarried, transported across difficult terrain, and assembled with near-perfect accuracy. Surfaces were smoothed, corners aligned, and joints fitted without mortar, in some cases so precisely that even modern machinery struggles to replicate the results. These feats imply knowledge of leverage, tensile strength, and material properties far beyond what simple tools should allow. The techniques were preserved and transmitted, refined through experience and observation, forming a body of technological wisdom inherited by later generations. Metallurgy across multiple early civilizations further demonstrates the depth of technical knowledge. Copper, bronze, and gold were extracted, purified, and shaped using methods that required precise control of temperature and chemical reactions. Smelting and alloying were not random processes, but carefully regulated procedures, producing metals with specific hardness, malleability, and durability. The creation of tools, ceremonial objects, and weapons was informed by both practical and symbolic considerations, reflecting an understanding of physics and chemistry that persisted across time. These practices form a chain of expertise, passed from artisan to apprentice, civilization to successor, leaving a lasting imprint on human capability. The manipulation of water, a technology essential to survival, illustrates the ingenuity of early engineers. Irrigation canals, cisterns, reservoirs, and aqueducts were constructed with an understanding of flow, pressure, and gradient. Civilizations in arid regions, such as Mesopotamia and North Africa, transformed landscapes with networks capable of sustaining agriculture over vast areas. In the Andes, terraced fields captured rainfall and controlled erosion, creating microclimates suitable for diverse crops. These systems reflect careful observation, planning, and long-term implementation, demonstrating an inherited expertise that ensured the survival and growth of human communities for centuries. Urban planning in early settlements also displays an advanced grasp of spatial organization and resource management. Streets were laid out in grids, drainage systems were integrated beneath roadways, and public spaces were designed for social, religious, and administrative purposes. Cities were not mere collections of dwellings, but structured environments that balanced human needs with environmental constraints. The ability to conceptualize, design, and execute such complex layouts indicates knowledge preserved across generations, with each successor inheriting insights from prior builders. The knowledge embedded in early construction extended to astronomy and timekeeping. Observatories, aligned temples, and monuments track solar, lunar, and stellar movements with remarkable precision. Calendars and ceremonial cycles were grounded in observation of the heavens, allowing societies to coordinate agricultural activity, predict seasonal changes, and regulate religious rituals. The translation of celestial patterns into architectural and agricultural applications reflects a form of technological literacy that transcends individual civilizations, demonstrating continuity of understanding passed down through centuries. Mechanical devices, though rare in survival, hint at further sophistication. Simple machines such as levers, pulleys, and inclined planes were utilized not only for construction, but also for transportation and industry. Artifacts and written records from multiple early civilizations suggest experimentation with gears, water wheels, and early automata. These technologies demonstrate an appreciation of physical principles and a capacity for innovation that required both empirical observation and systematic experimentation. Successors inherited these techniques, adapting them to new contexts and advancing their complexity over time. Art and symbolic expression intertwined with technology, embedding information in both visual and functional form. Decorative motifs, geometric patterns, and inscriptions often convey encoded knowledge about structural design, astronomical events, and social organization. Artifacts serve dual purposes: aesthetic and instructive, preserving insights in a format that could be interpreted and applied by later generations. Knowledge persisted not only in physical tools and structures, but in symbolic systems capable of guiding successors long after the original creators had vanished. Transportation and infrastructure further reflect lost technological mastery. Roads, bridges, and causeways were constructed to traverse difficult terrain, incorporating drainage, weight distribution, and durable materials. Trade networks relied on these systems to connect distant communities, enabling the transfer of materials, ideas, and expertise. The technical understanding required to build such enduring infrastructure demonstrates the sophistication of ancient engineers and the continuity of their knowledge through successive civilizations. Finally, the cumulative effect of these technologies reveals an overarching principle: knowledge endures. Even when civilizations collapse, the innovations they leave behind influence successors. Stones, metals, inscriptions, and monuments function as repositories of wisdom, enabling each new generation to build upon what came before. Humanity inherits not only physical artifacts but the processes, experimentation, and methods encoded in them, forming a continuous thread of technological mastery stretching far beyond recorded history. Every surviving device, structure, and artifact serves as a reminder that early civilizations possessed abilities that are astonishing even by modern standards. The knowledge preserved in these creations did not vanish with their builders. Instead, it became the inheritance of successors, shaping human progress and providing a foundation for the achievements that define modern civilization. Humanity stands on this vast legacy, continuing the work of architects, engineers, and inventors whose names are lost, but whose influence endures across millennia. Across the tapestry of human history, culture serves as both mirror and bridge, reflecting the achievements of those who lived before and carrying them forward to future generations. Music, art, language, ritual, and storytelling are far more than expressions of creativity. They are vessels of knowledge, encoded and transmitted through generations. Ancient societies preserve the memory of their predecessors, not only in monuments and tools, but in traditions, myths, and practices, creating a cultural framework that survives long after civilizations have vanished. In this way, humanity inherits a continuity of thought, perception, and understanding, a cultural memory that informs identity, social organization, and the pursuit of knowledge. Storytelling was central to the preservation of memory. Oral traditions passed down over centuries contained more than tales of gods and heroes. They encoded practical knowledge, moral frameworks, and historical events. From the epic poems of Mesopotamia to the myths of the indigenous peoples of the Americas, stories carried a dual purpose: to entertain and to educate, to guide behavior and to preserve the achievements of those who came before. Symbolism, repetition, and allegory served as mechanisms to embed complex knowledge in narrative form, ensuring that even as languages evolved and societies transformed, the essential truths of the past endured. Art served as another repository of cultural memory, simultaneously aesthetic and functional. Frescoes, carvings, and sculptural works documented cosmology, agriculture, governance, and technology. Patterns in pottery, the geometry of stonework, and the iconography of sacred spaces encoded knowledge about mathematics, engineering, and natural observation. These artistic expressions acted as an enduring interface between generations, transmitting understanding through visual and spatial representation. Successive societies could interpret, adapt, and expand upon these insights, maintaining continuity in the intellectual and practical achievements of their predecessors. Ritual and ceremony reinforced cultural memory through repeated practice, embedding knowledge into the rhythms of daily life. Seasonal festivals, agricultural rites, and religious observances reflected sophisticated awareness of environmental cycles, celestial events, and social cohesion. The precision with which these rituals were conducted demonstrates a form of experiential learning passed down across generations. Knowledge became inseparable from action, preserved not merely in objects or texts, but in habitual practice, ensuring the survival of ancestral understanding even in the absence of written records. Language itself functioned as a medium of inheritance. Beyond its role as communication, language encoded concepts, classifications, and frameworks that shaped human cognition. The development of written scripts, from cuneiform in Mesopotamia to hieroglyphs in Egypt, provided a durable medium for storing and transmitting complex knowledge. The subtleties of grammar, symbolism, and metaphor allowed civilizations to capture not only practical information but abstract ideas, philosophical principles, and moral reasoning. The continuity of language preserved insights across centuries, allowing successors to build upon a foundation established long before their time. Architecture reinforced the preservation of memory, embedding cultural values and knowledge into physical spaces. Temples, palaces, and civic structures were designed with careful attention to proportion, orientation, and material durability. Beyond their immediate functional purpose, these structures conveyed information about societal hierarchy, cosmology, and technological mastery. Every alignment, decorative motif, and structural innovation reflected inherited understanding, demonstrating that knowledge could be encoded in the very shape of human habitation. Music and sound carried subtler forms of cultural memory, encoding rhythms, patterns, and modes that reflected environmental observation, social interaction, and emotional resonance. Chants, songs, and instrumental compositions were structured to preserve information, guide communal action, and reinforce collective identity. The repetition and transmission of musical forms allowed knowledge to survive disruptions in written or oral history, creating a continuity of human experience that extended beyond the lifespan of any individual or civilization. Education, in early societies, functioned as an active mechanism for preserving memory. Apprenticeships, mentorships, and community instruction ensured that technical skill, artistic practice, and social wisdom were passed intact from one generation to the next. The emphasis on learning through observation, practice, and correction reflects a recognition that knowledge was fragile and required deliberate stewardship. Civilizations thrived when cultural memory was actively maintained, enabling successors to inherit not only objects and techniques, but the principles and reasoning underlying them. Migration and trade amplified the preservation of cultural memory, creating networks that carried ideas, artifacts, and practices across continents. Exchange routes facilitated the transmission of agricultural methods, artistic motifs, linguistic forms, and technological innovations. In this way, the cultural memory of one region became accessible to distant societies, providing a foundation upon which successors could build, adapt, and innovate. Knowledge survived not only through local continuity but through global interaction, ensuring its persistence even in the face of environmental or social upheaval. The cumulative effect of these mechanisms created a continuity that transcended individual civilizations. Successive societies inherited a rich reservoir of cultural memory that shaped human cognition, innovation, and identity. Humanity's present achievements are inseparable from this layered history, a testament to the enduring power of knowledge encoded in art, language, ritual, and practice. The memory of predecessors forms a living bridge across time, enabling humanity to navigate the challenges of the present with insights preserved over millennia. In every artifact, every monument, every story passed down through time, the imprint of cultural memory endures. Humanity does not begin in isolation. It inherits a legacy of thought, observation, and ingenuity that reaches far beyond recorded history. The achievements of past civilizations live on in the practices, beliefs, and knowledge of successors, shaping not only what humanity can accomplish, but how it perceives the world, interacts with the environment, and understands itself as part of a continuum that stretches across the ages. Across the vast expanse of human history, civilizations have emerged with remarkable brilliance, only to vanish under the weight of time, environmental change, or internal collapse. From the fertile plains of Mesopotamia to the highlands of Central America, the rise and fall of societies followed discernible patterns that reveal the interplay of ambition, adaptation, and vulnerability. These patterns are not isolated anomalies, but consistent processes through which civilizations create, sustain, and ultimately relinquish their dominance. Observing these cycles provides insight into the inherited legacies humanity carries, demonstrating that the story of the present is inseparable from the echoes of the past. The initial rise of civilizations often coincided with environmental abundance and strategic geographic placement. Fertile river valleys, access to mineral resources, and favorable climates allowed early societies to sustain agriculture, build infrastructure, and concentrate populations. Settlements grew into cities, and cities into states. Urban centers became hubs of technological innovation, cultural development, and political organization. The lessons embedded in this rise illustrate the intricate balance between natural opportunity and human ingenuity, showing how the capacity to exploit the environment effectively set the stage for the preservation and transmission of knowledge to future generations. As civilizations expanded, they developed increasingly complex social structures to manage resources, labor, and governance. Hierarchies emerged to coordinate the construction of monumental architecture, irrigation networks, and roads. Religious and administrative institutions codified law, ritual, and social behavior, embedding stability within society. This combination of organizational skill and environmental mastery allowed knowledge to accumulate and be refined, creating an inheritance of technological, cultural, and intellectual frameworks. The architects, engineers, and scribes of early civilizations ensured that successors would inherit not only physical structures, but the principles guiding them. However, the very mechanisms that enabled success also created vulnerabilities. Overexploitation of resources, social stratification, and rigid political hierarchies often undermined resilience. Soil depletion, deforestation, water mismanagement, and climate fluctuations destabilized agriculture and food supply. Populations became concentrated in urban centers, making them susceptible to disease, famine, or invasion. The collapse of these systems, while catastrophic for contemporary societies, did not erase knowledge entirely. Many skills, traditions, and technological insights survived in fragments, preserved in monuments, oral traditions, and dispersed communities. Humanity inherited a record of both achievement and caution, illustrating the fragility of civilization alongside its potential. Trade networks played a dual role in the rise and fall of civilizations. They facilitated the spread of materials, ideas, and technologies, creating interdependent economies across vast distances. However, dependence on external sources also increased vulnerability to disruption. The decline of a central hub could ripple across regions, causing systemic failure. Successors who survived or emerged in these conditions inherited not only physical artifacts and technologies, but strategic lessons in cooperation. adaptation, and resilience. Patterns of trade, both flourishing and collapsing, reveal the ways knowledge and cultural memory are transmitted even amid societal upheaval. The environmental context frequently dictated the trajectory of civilizations. Shifts in climate, the drying of rivers, or rising sea levels imposed challenges that required adaptation and foresight. Societies that thrived developed engineering solutions, agricultural innovation, and social flexibility to cope with change. Those that failed often experienced rapid decline, leaving behind monumental evidence of prior expertise. These ruins, terraces, canals, and cities stand as enduring lessons for successors, demonstrating both the heights of human achievement and the consequences of ecological mismanagement. Technological innovation often accompanied societal growth, allowing civilizations to achieve remarkable feats. Metallurgy, ceramics, navigation, and architectural engineering enabled urban expansion, efficient agriculture, and cultural expression. These technologies were rarely invented in isolation. They evolved over time, transmitted through apprenticeships, trade, and observation. Successor societies inherited both the artifacts and the methods, ensuring that knowledge persisted beyond the collapse of individual states. Even after civilizations fell, their technological imprint continued to shape human development for centuries. Cultural and intellectual achievements were similarly resilient. Written records, codified laws, and artistic expressions preserved ethical principles, cosmologies, and historical events. Libraries, inscriptions, and monumental reliefs acted as repositories of knowledge, accessible to later generations. Successors could reinterpret these legacies, adapt them to new contexts, and integrate them with emerging innovations. The rise and fall of civilizations, therefore, represents a continuous dialogue, where the memory of one society informs and shapes the possibilities of the next. Military expansion and conflict played a recurring role in the patterns of rise and fall. Conquests could unify regions, spread technologies, and facilitate cultural exchange, while wars and invasions could precipitate rapid decline. Successors inherited the consequences of these dynamics, including infrastructure, knowledge, and cultural practices, as well as the lessons of strategy, diplomacy, and resilience. Even destruction often carried with it unintended preservation, as relocated peoples, displaced texts, and repurposed artifacts ensured that fragments of knowledge endured. Religious and philosophical systems contributed to the endurance of cultural memory. Rituals, ethical codes, and cosmologies embedded understanding of the natural world, social cohesion, and human behavior. These frameworks guided societies through cycles of prosperity and adversity, providing stability and continuity even as political structures collapsed. Successors absorbed these systems, integrating inherited wisdom into new social and cultural configurations, sustaining elements of knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. Ultimately, the study of patterns in the rise and fall of civilizations reveals a principle central to humanity's inheritance. Knowledge survives disruption. Environmental change, political upheaval, or societal collapse rarely extinguishes the innovations, cultural memory, and intellectual frameworks cultivated by predecessors. Successors inherit both the achievements and the lessons, adapting and expanding upon them to meet new challenges. The cycles of history become a record, not of endings, but of transmission, where the brilliance of the past continues to shape the possibilities of the present. The Earth itself preserves these legacies. Ruins, terraced landscapes, irrigation systems, and architectural marvels serve as enduring testimony to the cycles of creation and decline. Through observation, study, and adaptation, humanity continues to learn from these traces, integrating them into modern understanding. The rise and fall of civilizations is thus not a narrative of finality, but a testament to continuity, demonstrating that every generation inherits both the accomplishments and the knowledge of those who came before. Beneath the surface of the Earth lies a repository of memory, a silent archive preserved in soil, rock, and sediment. Layers of sediment, fossilized remains, and buried structures record the history of life and civilization in a language written in stone and mineral. Archaeologists, geologists, and historians alike have long recognized that the Earth itself functions as a witness, storing knowledge from epochs long before humanity emerged. Buried cities, underground chambers, and hidden artifacts offer glimpses into civilizations that existed and disappeared, leaving behind not only physical remnants, but encoded intelligence awaiting rediscovery. Subterranean structures reveal a mastery of engineering and an understanding of the natural world that is astonishing. Caves adapted for habitation, tunnels designed for transportation, and storage chambers optimized for preservation demonstrate advanced comprehension of geology, temperature regulation, and structural stability. In ancient settlements, underground networks served practical purposes such as water management, protection, and storage, but they also preserved knowledge. The meticulous planning evident in these structures ensured that innovations survived beyond the visible surface of human activity, accessible only to those who could uncover and interpret them. Artifacts recovered from deep layers of soil often defy the conventional timeline of human development. Tools, ornaments, and inscriptions appear fully formed, exhibiting skills, materials, and design principles that suggest prior experience and technological continuity. These discoveries reveal that knowledge can remain hidden for centuries, awaiting the right conditions for exposure and interpretation. Humanity inherits not only what is immediately visible, but the latent wisdom preserved beneath the earth, a continuum of innovation that transcends individual civilizations and historical epochs. Geological formations themselves can preserve evidence of early intelligence and environmental manipulation. Terraces, canals, and artificially modified landscapes often blend seamlessly into natural terrain, leaving subtle clues to the trained observer. Ancient peoples altered the land to sustain agriculture, redirect water, and prevent erosion, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of ecology and engineering. These interventions became part of the geological record, a durable imprint that conveys strategies and insights to those who come later. Successors inherit both the land and the encoded knowledge embedded within it. Fossilized remains offer further insight into the interaction between humans, predecessors, and the environment. Bones, tools, and imprints reveal patterns of activity, diet, and technological practice. The co-occurrence of artifacts with environmental data provides a holistic understanding of how civilizations adapted to changing conditions. These preserved traces are not static. They form a dialogue with modern researchers, offering guidance on sustainable practices, engineering methods, and resource management that were developed and refined by earlier societies. Underground libraries, archives, and storage sites served as intentional repositories of knowledge. Ancient civilizations often buried records, tools, and sacred objects to protect them from invasion, environmental disaster, or decay. These caches revealed deliberate preservation strategies, designed to ensure that critical knowledge could be recovered by successors. The careful curation of materials demonstrates that civilizations recognized the fragility of knowledge and its importance for the continuation of culture and technological progress. Hidden chambers and lost cities demonstrate extraordinary foresight and ingenuity. Structures designed to resist natural forces, floods, and earthquakes reflect an empirical understanding of engineering and materials. In places like the Indus Valley, subterranean drainage systems and fortified underground spaces indicate meticulous planning and long-term vision. These constructions convey information about construction techniques, social organization, and environmental adaptation, forming an inheritance of practical knowledge preserved beneath centuries of earth and debris. Metallurgy and mineral knowledge were often stored and transmitted through buried materials. Smelting residues, alloy compositions, and hidden caches of metals reveal an advanced understanding of chemical processes. These techniques were preserved in both physical form and procedural knowledge, ensuring that successors could access and continue the technological legacy of their predecessors. Buried minerals and metalwork function as silent teachers, offering insight into experimentation, refinement, and material mastery developed over generations. Buried artifacts also preserve cultural and spiritual memory. Ceremonial objects, inscriptions, and symbolic motifs safeguarded underground reveal belief systems, cosmologies, and social hierarchies. These objects encode knowledge about ethics, governance, ritual practice, and cosmological understanding, offering successors guidance in maintaining social cohesion and cultural continuity. Humanity inherits not only the physical remnants, but the intellectual and spiritual frameworks that shaped societies long before modern memory. Archaeological excavations reveal patterns in the placement, preservation, and retrieval of knowledge. Layers of occupation, abandonment, and rediscovery demonstrate that knowledge was intentionally layered within the earth, creating a temporal archive accessible to those with the tools and understanding to uncover it. The stratification of artifacts, inscriptions, and structures forms a tangible map of technological and cultural evolution, preserving the accumulated wisdom of countless generations. The Earth itself functions as a partner in the preservation of knowledge. Erosion, sedimentation, and mineralization act as natural archival processes, protecting artifacts from the immediate ravages of time while gradually revealing them to those capable of interpretation. Humanity's ability to read this geological record allows the recovery of insights that would otherwise remain lost, demonstrating that inheritance is not confined to the visible or the written, but extends into the very fabric of the planet. Every buried structure, artifact, and geological feature carries the imprint of intelligence and design. These hidden elements of the past preserve lessons in engineering, social organization, technology, and culture. Humanity, as the inheritor of this buried legacy, continues the work of civilizations long vanished, piecing together knowledge preserved beneath the surface and integrating it into the ongoing narrative of progress, innovation, and understanding. From the earliest settlements to the great cities of antiquity, humans have looked upward, observing the sky with a mixture of wonder and precision. The heavens became a record, a celestial archive where knowledge was encoded, preserved, and transmitted across generations. Monuments, observatories, and calendars reveal a deep understanding of astronomy that guided agriculture, navigation, and cultural life. The movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars were measured, recorded, and aligned with human activity, forming a legacy that connected the terrestrial and the cosmic. Humanity inherited not only the practical applications of these observations, but the sophisticated understanding embedded in the structures and traditions of those who came before. Stone circles, pyramids, and temples demonstrate a remarkable integration of architecture and astronomy. Their orientations correspond precisely to solstices, equinoxes, and stellar risings, reflecting careful observation and mathematical knowledge. Structures in Egypt, the British Isles, and Mesoamerica embody this alignment, serving as instruments for tracking time, coordinating agricultural cycles, and marking ritual events. These constructions are enduring testimonies to the capacity of ancient civilizations to codify celestial knowledge into durable monuments, allowing successive generations to inherit insights without written records. Calendrical systems represent one of the most sophisticated expressions of celestial understanding. By observing lunar cycles, solar movements, and planetary positions, early societies developed intricate calendars to regulate planting, harvesting, and ceremonial observances. The Mayan long count, the Egyptian civil calendar, and the Babylonian lunisolar system are examples of knowledge encoded with extraordinary precision. These systems required long-term observation, data collection, and the abstraction of natural cycles into mathematical form. Successors inherited the principles, methods, and conceptual frameworks, allowing civilizations separated by geography and time to maintain continuity in understanding the cosmos. Observatories, often integrated into sacred spaces, reflect an intimate relationship between science and spirituality. Elevated platforms, precisely cut windows, and subterranean chambers allowed careful tracking of celestial bodies. The movement of stars and planets was recorded, not only for practical purposes, but to embed cosmology into the cultural and ritual life of societies. These observatories preserved knowledge that could be interpreted and expanded by successive generations, ensuring that the sky itself remained a source of guidance and wisdom. The precision of ancient astronomical knowledge suggests careful observation over centuries, often exceeding the practical requirements of immediate survival. Alignments of monuments to stars, planetary cycles, and lunar nodes demonstrate abstract reasoning, numerical calculation, and long-term planning. Knowledge of these cycles inform navigation, architecture, and religious practice, providing a framework for understanding the world. Successors inherited both the methods of observation and the intellectual scaffolding necessary to interpret complex patterns in the sky. Celestial symbolism permeated art, architecture, and ritual. Constellations, solar and lunar motifs, and planetary symbols appear in carvings, frescoes, and ceremonial objects across civilizations. These symbolic systems encode knowledge about seasonal cycles, cosmological principles, and social hierarchy, functioning as mnemonic devices to preserve understanding over centuries. Humanity inherited not only practical astronomical knowledge, but also symbolic frameworks, linking observation with cultural meaning, reinforcing both comprehension and memory. Navigation and exploration were profoundly influenced by celestial understanding. Mariners and traders relied on the positions of stars, the sun, and the moon to traverse oceans and deserts. The principles of latitude and longitude, inferred long before formal mapping, were encoded in instruments, oral traditions, and celestial lore. Successors inherited these techniques, enabling expansion, trade, and cultural exchange across vast distances. The sky became a guide and a teacher, its knowledge preserved and transmitted across generations. Mathematics and geometry were inseparable from celestial observation. Calculations for predicting eclipses, solstices, and planetary conjunctions required numerical abstraction, pattern recognition, and algorithmic thinking. The Mayan eclipse tables, Babylonian ephemerides, and Egyptian surveying methods illustrate how astronomical knowledge drove the development of quantitative reasoning. Successors inherited these methods and expanded upon them, creating a continuum in which celestial knowledge contributed to technological, architectural, and cultural advancement. Ritual calendars tied celestial observation to social and religious practice. Festivals, sacrifices, and ceremonial activities corresponded with solstices, equinoxes, and planetary alignments. These practices ensured that knowledge was embodied in cyclical activity, creating a living memory that reinforced cultural cohesion. The inheritance of this knowledge preserved both technical insight and social organization, ensuring continuity even when political or environmental disruption occurred. Records of astronomical knowledge were sometimes deliberately encoded in stone, metal, and clay. Inscriptions, tablets, and monumental markers preserved observations and calculations with extraordinary precision. These records functioned as durable repositories of knowledge, accessible to successors who could decode, interpret, and apply them. The continuity of understanding across centuries demonstrates that the sky itself was a library, offering lessons to civilizations long after their creators had vanished. The skyward legacy extends into modern understanding. Observations encoded in ancient monuments continue to inform contemporary archaeology, astronomy, and cultural studies. Alignments, inscriptions, and symbolic representations provide evidence of sophisticated empirical knowledge, mathematical reasoning, and observational skill. Humanity inherits both the practical techniques and the conceptual frameworks of predecessors, integrating celestial understanding into the ongoing pursuit of science and cultural continuity. Through every monument, every observation, and every symbolic encoding of the heavens, the legacy of ancient astronomers endures. Humanity inherits a cumulative body of knowledge that reaches beyond individual lifespans, preserving insight into the natural world and its patterns. The sky itself stands as a testament to the intelligence, foresight, and creativity of civilizations long past, providing guidance, inspiration, and a continuous thread of wisdom for generations of successors. Beneath the surface of visible history lies another archive, written not in stone, clay, or ink, but in the molecules that compose every living cell. DNA functions as a vessel of inheritance, carrying the accumulated adaptations, instincts, and biological insights of countless generations. Every human being today is the product of this genetic memory, a living embodiment of the experiences, innovations, and survival strategies of those who came before. The continuity of life preserves intelligence, resilience, and even behavioral tendencies, forming a bridge between the earliest predecessors and the modern world. Human evolution reflects not only survival, but the inheritance of accumulated knowledge encoded in biology. Brain development, sensory acuity, and motor skills are the results of countless generations adapting to challenges in the environment. Each generation refines neural architecture, memory capacity, and cognitive flexibility, creating the potential for complex thought, communication, and problem-solving. Humanity inherits this neurological legacy, an unseen library of adaptive intelligence that enables the accumulation of cultural, technological, and social knowledge over millennia. Beyond cognition, instincts serve as a subtle form of inherited memory. Survival strategies, responses to environmental threats, patterns of social organization, and methods of resource utilization have been encoded in biology. Behaviors that enhance survival, from cooperative hunting to environmental management, left their imprint in genetic networks, forming the foundation upon which cultural and technological knowledge could be built. Successors inherit these instincts not as conscious instruction, but as preconditions for learning, perception, and social cohesion, enabling the continuation of strategies developed by distant predecessors. Genetic inheritance extends to physical adaptations that shaped early civilizations. Skeletal structure, muscular coordination, and sensory perception reflect the pressures of environment, labor, and survival. Populations adapted to mountainous terrain, river valleys, deserts, and coastal regions developed distinct physical capacities, optimizing their interaction with the landscape. These adaptations were not isolated but cumulative, forming a lineage of embodied knowledge that allowed successive generations to inherit the skills necessary to navigate, exploit, and transform their environment. The transmission of genetic traits also shaped cognition and creativity. Memory, pattern recognition, spatial reasoning, and abstract thought are influenced by inherited neural structures, enabling humans to observe, analyze, and manipulate their surroundings. Early inventors, artisans, and engineers drew upon this foundation, transforming instinct and perception into applied knowledge. Successors inherit not only the outcomes of these efforts, but the very cognitive machinery that made innovation possible, ensuring continuity in the capacity for problem-solving, artistic expression, and scientific reasoning. Cultural and environmental pressures further sculpted the genome, encoding resilience into biological systems. Exposure to diverse climates, pathogens, and diets created populations capable of adaptation, a form of inherited flexibility that allowed humans to survive and thrive across disparate regions. These adaptations form a living record of prior generations' interactions with the environment, embedding the memory of challenges and solutions into the physiology of successors. Humanity's capacity to respond to environmental and social change is therefore inseparable from this genetic legacy. Epigenetic mechanisms illustrate another layer of inherited knowledge. Life experiences can influence gene expression, leaving traces that affect descendants without altering the DNA sequence itself. Nutritional practices, stress responses, and behavioral patterns of ancestors can shape the development of future generations, allowing environmental and cultural knowledge to be carried forward biologically. In this sense, inheritance becomes multidimensional, preserving lessons not only in physical form, but in the dynamic regulation of life processes. Domestication of plants and animals exemplifies the interplay of genetic knowledge and cultural practice. Early humans selected for traits that optimized yield, resilience, and usability, gradually shaping species over generations. The resulting genetic adaptations were guided by observation, experimentation, and accumulated insight. Humanity inherited these cultivated species as repositories of both biological and cultural knowledge, a living archive of understanding preserved and refined over millennia. The human immune system, as another example, carries the memory of prior generations' encounters with pathogens. Resistance, vulnerability, and adaptive responses are transmitted through genetic and epigenetic mechanisms, reflecting the experience of populations across centuries. This inherited biological knowledge enhances survival, demonstrating that the lessons of the past are embedded not only in artifacts and monuments, but in the bodies of successors themselves. Language acquisition and social behavior are shaped by genetic predispositions, reflecting an inherited framework for learning and interaction. Humans are born with neural structures capable of processing complex communication, interpreting social cues, and establishing cultural norms. Successors inherit these capacities, enabling the transmission of knowledge across generations, from practical skills to moral reasoning and abstract thought. The genetic legacy forms the substrate upon which cultural inheritance can build. Human longevity, health, and reproductive success are all informed by inherited biological knowledge. Metabolic pathways, neurological resilience, and cardiovascular efficiency are products of adaptation, refinement, and selective survival over countless generations. These traits provide successors with the physiological foundation necessary to acquire, preserve, and apply cultural and technological knowledge, creating a continuous chain of inherited competence that links distant ancestors with the modern world. The genetic echo of ancient knowledge demonstrates that inheritance is not confined to artifacts, language, or monuments. Life itself functions as a repository of insight, preserving adaptations, behaviors, and cognitive capacities developed over millennia. Humanity embodies this continuum, a living archive carrying the wisdom of predecessors into every thought, action, and creation. The genes of the past inform the possibilities of the present, ensuring that the legacy of intelligence, observation, and innovation endures within every successor. Language is the vessel of human memory, a system of signs, sounds, and structures capable of preserving thought, culture, and knowledge across generations. From the earliest pictographs etched into stone to the complex scripts of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Mesoamerica, language has encoded information about society, technology, governance, and cosmology. Symbols, whether visual, auditory, or gestural, serve as bridges across time, preserving concepts that might otherwise have vanished. Humanity inherits this encoded wisdom, able to decipher, interpret, and expand upon it, forming a continuum of understanding that stretches far beyond the lifespan of individual civilizations. The evolution of writing systems demonstrates the deliberate effort to preserve and transmit knowledge. Cuneiform tablets, hieroglyphic inscriptions, and early logographic characters convey not only administrative data, but also astronomical observations, religious instruction, and philosophical insight. The act of writing transforms transient ideas into durable records, allowing successors to access and build upon the accumulated intelligence of previous generations. These systems reflect both practical necessity and intellectual foresight, demonstrating a conscious effort to create a legacy of knowledge. Symbols extend beyond language into the visual and architectural realms. Geometric patterns, iconographic motifs, and ceremonial design encode cultural memory in forms that are simultaneously functional, aesthetic, and informative. Temples, pyramids, and palaces are adorned with symbols that record social hierarchy, cosmology, and technological principles. Successors, even when separated by centuries or geography, can interpret these signs, unlocking insights into the values, beliefs, and knowledge of predecessors. The landscape itself becomes a repository of encoded information, a medium through which memory survives the decay of time. Oral tradition complements written and symbolic forms, providing a dynamic, adaptive mechanism for transmitting knowledge. Songs, chants, and epic narratives encode history, law, and practical instruction. Stories embed observation of natural cycles, social conduct, and technological expertise within memorable frameworks, ensuring continuity even in the absence of permanent records. The human brain, predisposed to pattern recognition, facilitates the transmission of knowledge through repetition and mnemonic devices, preserving the intellectual and cultural achievements of ancestors in the minds of successors. Mathematics, as a symbolic language, serves as a critical conduit for inherited knowledge. Numerical systems, geometric principles, and abstract calculation were encoded into symbols that allowed successive generations to perform precise measurement, design monumental structures, and track celestial phenomena. The inscriptions of early mathematicians reveal a systematic approach to problem-solving and observation, allowing successors to inherit methods of reasoning that remain foundational to modern science and engineering. Mathematics, like language, functions as a universal medium of memory. Ritual symbols preserve layers of knowledge simultaneously practical and metaphysical. Calendrical glyphs, ceremonial icons, and ritualistic markings encode agricultural timing, celestial observation, and social order. These symbols ensure that complex understanding is retained within culturally significant practices, guiding behavior while transmitting knowledge across generations. Humanity inherits the capacity to interpret these systems, connecting the present with the cognitive frameworks and priorities of ancient civilizations. Maps and spatial symbols reflect both practical knowledge and cultural memory. Early cartography, whether inscribed on clay, painted on cloth, or carved in stone, records topography, water systems, and resource locations. These visual languages enabled successive societies to navigate landscapes, plan infrastructure, and manage resources effectively. Symbolic representation of space preserves insight into both the natural environment and human adaptation, encoding strategies that have guided civilizations for millennia. Numerical and symbolic codification in trade, commerce, and governance reflects another dimension of inherited knowledge. Tokens, weights, seals, and accounting tablets encode economic systems, labor organization, and legal structures. These symbols carry information about societal priorities, technological skill, and administrative insight. Successors inherit not only the physical tools, but the conceptual understanding of management, organization, and negotiation embedded within them. Religious and philosophical systems are also encoded in language and symbols, preserving cosmological models, ethical principles, and social hierarchies. Sacred texts, ritual inscriptions, and symbolic artifacts carry knowledge that guided human behavior and structured societies. Successors inherit this encoded wisdom, capable of interpreting and applying the principles to new circumstances, sustaining cultural continuity even when civilizations decline or transform. Artistic symbolism serves as both cultural memory and educational tool. Patterns in sculpture, painting, and decorative work convey information about technology, environmental observation, and social identity. Symbolic systems operate as a form of visual literacy, encoding lessons about geometry, physics, and natural observation. These forms endure across centuries, providing successors with access to insights that might have otherwise been lost, preserving knowledge within the aesthetic dimension of human experience. Language and symbols are inherently adaptable, allowing knowledge to survive disruption and transformation. Scripts evolve, oral traditions change, and symbols are reinterpreted, yet the core information remains accessible to those who understand the system. Humanity inherits not only the content of past knowledge, but the methods of encoding, preserving, and transmitting it, ensuring that the memory of predecessors continues to inform thought, creativity, and societal organization. In every inscription, glyph, and visual motif, there exists a thread linking present understanding to the ingenuity, observation, and wisdom of past civilizations. Humanity stands as the inheritor of these encoded memories, able to interpret, expand, and apply them across millennia. Language and symbols form the invisible scaffolding of cultural memory, preserving insight, observation, and innovation in a continuum that transcends individual lifespans, ensuring that the legacy of predecessors endures in both thought and practice. Innovation is the lifeblood of civilization, a continuous thread linking past ingenuity to modern advancement. Across millennia, societies have developed technologies, methods, and systems that reflect both observation and experimentation, each innovation building upon the discoveries of predecessors. Even as civilizations rise and fall, These insights persist, embedded in tools, structures, and cultural memory. Successors inherit more than physical artifacts. They inherit the cognitive frameworks, problem-solving strategies, and methods of experimentation that allow knowledge to evolve over generations. The story of innovation is one of continuity, a chain in which each link strengthens the next. In early societies, the wheel, plow, and irrigation system exemplify the persistence of practical innovation. These inventions arose from observation of natural forces, trial and error, and collaborative refinement. Their effectiveness ensured widespread adoption, integration into daily life, and eventual transmission to successive generations. The principles behind these innovations, mechanical advantage, soil management, and water control, endure even in modern systems. Humanity inherits both the physical inventions and the conceptual understanding that allowed them to emerge, ensuring that knowledge is cumulative rather than ephemeral. Metallurgy illustrates the longevity of technological mastery. Techniques for smelting, alloying, and shaping metals were honed over centuries, refined through observation and experimentation. Early metalworkers experimented with temperature, chemical reactions, and mechanical processes to create tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects. These innovations were preserved, transmitted, and adapted by successive societies, creating a continuous legacy of material science. The methods, principles, and problem-solving approaches embedded in these processes became part of humanity's inherited toolkit, enabling each generation to push the boundaries of possibility further. Agricultural innovation demonstrates how practical knowledge can persist across ages. Selective breeding, soil management, crop rotation, and irrigation were developed to maximize yield and sustainability. These strategies required careful observation of plant behavior, seasonal patterns, and environmental conditions, refined over generations through trial and error. Successors inherited both the crops themselves and the agricultural wisdom necessary to cultivate them effectively. The persistence of these innovations illustrates how knowledge is embedded not only in tools, but in relationships with the natural world, guiding practices over centuries. Architectural and engineering techniques reveal a similar continuity. The construction of monumental structures, bridges, and urban infrastructure required mastery of materials, geometry, and physics. Builders refined methods for load distribution, stability, and durability, ensuring that structures could endure for centuries. Knowledge of these principles was codified in plans, apprenticeship, and practice, creating a framework that allowed successive generations to inherit, adapt, and expand upon earlier achievements. Humanity's inherited capacity to shape the built environment reflects the persistence of innovation across time. Scientific observation itself represents a long chain of cumulative insight. Early astronomers, mathematicians, and natural philosophers recorded patterns in the natural world, codifying principles that informed both practical and theoretical understanding. Observations of celestial bodies, water flow, and ecological cycles became the foundation for prediction, experimentation, and technological application. These observations were not lost with the fall of civilizations. Successors were able to interpret, preserve, and expand upon them, demonstrating the enduring nature of empirical knowledge. Trade and communication networks further amplified the persistence of innovation. As ideas, tools, and practices traveled across continents, innovations were preserved, adapted, and improved upon in new contexts. The transmission of techniques from metallurgy to agriculture to navigation ensured that knowledge survived the decline of individual civilizations. Successors inherited these innovations not only in physical form, but in the principles and problem-solving approaches that enabled their creation, forming a web of cumulative intelligence spanning vast regions. Art and symbolism also encode technological and conceptual innovation. Patterns, proportions, and motifs reflect mathematical, astronomical, and structural understanding. By decoding these elements, successors could access the practical and theoretical knowledge embedded within them. Art functions as both expression and instruction, preserving innovation in a form that transcends written language or material toolkits. Humanity inherits these symbolic lessons, able to interpret and integrate them into ongoing cultural and technological development. Innovation persisted in governance and social organization as well. Early civilizations developed administrative systems, legal codes, and economic frameworks to manage resources, coordinate labor, and maintain societal stability. These systems evolved through observation and experimentation, refined over generations, and transmitted to successors. The principles of organization, decision-making, and accountability embedded in these innovations continue to influence modern structures, demonstrating the continuity of practical knowledge across centuries. The persistence of innovation is evident in energy management, from early water wheels and windmills to mechanical automata and hydraulic systems. These inventions reflect an understanding of natural forces, efficiency, and resource utilization. Knowledge of these mechanisms was preserved in physical structures, written instruction, and apprenticeship, allowing successive generations to adapt and enhance prior achievements. Humanity inherits not only the tools themselves, but the methodology and reasoning that produce them, ensuring that innovation is cumulative rather than ephemeral. Education and mentorship ensured that innovation could persist across generations. Knowledge was codified, demonstrated, and transmitted through practice, observation, and correction. This deliberate cultivation of skill and understanding allowed successors to inherit both the content of innovation and the cognitive processes that enabled it. Human progress relies not only on discovery, but on the preservation of methods, ensuring that innovations are accessible, interpretable, and expandable over time. Every surviving tool, structure, and system represents the persistence of innovation. Humanity inherits not only the tangible outcomes of past creativity, but the intellectual frameworks, observational techniques, and problem-solving strategies that enabled them. Across ages and civilizations, the continuity of innovation forms an unbroken thread, a living legacy of insight, experimentation, and adaptation that continues to shape the possibilities of the present and future. Throughout history, civilizations have faced cataclysmic events: droughts, floods, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, plagues, and invasions that threatened the survival of societies and the knowledge they possessed. Yet, even in the wake of devastation, remnants of culture, technology, and wisdom persist. Knowledge demonstrates a remarkable resilience, surviving not only through physical artifacts, but through social structures, oral traditions, and adaptive practices. Humanity inherits this resilience, the ability to carry forward the insights of predecessors, even when the conditions that produce them have been erased. Natural disasters often act as both destroyers and preservers of knowledge. Floods, landslides, and volcanic ash may obliterate cities, yet they can also encapsulate and protect evidence of daily life, technology, and culture. Sites such as Pompeii and Herculaneum reveal entire civilizations preserved beneath layers of volcanic debris, offering successors an unparalleled window into the past. Similarly, sedimented floodplains and desert dunes can preserve artifacts, tools, and written records, ensuring that knowledge endures beyond immediate catastrophe. These preserved remnants testify to the duality of destruction and continuity inherent in human history. Human ingenuity plays a central role in preserving knowledge during crisis. Communities develop storage systems, fortified archives, and hidden repositories to protect essential records, tools, and materials from environmental hazards or invading forces. Buried libraries, vaults, and treasuries demonstrate deliberate foresight, reflecting a recognition of the fragility of knowledge and the necessity of proactive preservation. Successors inheriting these repositories gain access to information, technological processes, and cultural memory that might have otherwise been lost entirely. Oral tradition functions as a crucial mechanism for knowledge survival. Songs, stories, rituals, and proverbs encode history, ethics, and practical instruction, enabling communities to transmit information despite the destruction of physical records. These verbal systems are adaptive, capable of surviving displacement, social upheaval, or environmental catastrophe. Knowledge embedded in language and collective memory provides a bridge across disaster, ensuring that successors inherit insights vital to survival, organization, and cultural continuity. Technological knowledge exhibits similar resilience. Tools, construction methods, and engineering techniques are often rediscovered, adapted, or preserved even when civilizations collapse. Foundations, ruins, and scattered artifacts offer successors a tangible record of problem-solving strategies. The capacity to rebuild, modify, and innovate depends upon the inherited principles encoded in these remnants. Humanity benefits not only from physical artifacts, but from the conceptual frameworks that underlie them, ensuring continuity across catastrophic disruption. Environmental adaptation demonstrates the survival of knowledge beyond immediate threat. Agricultural techniques, irrigation methods, and food storage strategies are passed down as essential knowledge for sustaining populations under stress. Communities that endure drought, flooding, or soil depletion rely on inherited practices developed through centuries of trial, observation, and refinement. The resilience of knowledge is inseparable from the resilience of life itself, preserved through both culture and biology. Catastrophic social collapse often disperses populations, yet knowledge persists in migration. Refugees, displaced artisans, and scholars carry skills, rituals, and cultural memory to new regions, enabling the transmission of knowledge even in the absence of original infrastructure. Trade, intermarriage, and the re-establishment of settlements allow these dispersed practices to influence successor civilizations, demonstrating that knowledge can survive geographic and societal fragmentation. Religious and ceremonial systems preserve resilience in abstract forms. Rituals, symbolic practices, and ethical codes maintain coherence in society, offering guidance during periods of crisis. These intangible forms of knowledge can endure even when physical structures are destroyed. Successors inherit not only the symbolic frameworks but also the embedded practical insights, timing of planting and harvesting, community cohesion, and environmental observation that support survival and reconstruction. Disasters often accelerate innovation, compelling survivors to develop new technologies and strategies. Reconstruction requires adaptation, experimentation, and refinement, resulting in knowledge that incorporates lessons from catastrophe. Successors inherit both the pre-existing innovations and the adaptations generated by crisis, creating a cumulative legacy that combines historical insight with emergent problem-solving. The persistence of innovation in the face of catastrophe underscores the inherent durability of knowledge across generations. The material durability of artifacts contributes to knowledge survival. Metals, ceramics, stone, and clay withstand environmental and social upheaval far longer than organic materials. By embedding information in durable media, ancient societies ensured that successors could access the principles, skills, and concepts underlying their technologies. Even partial survival fragments of tools, inscriptions, or architectural elements allows interpretation, reconstruction, and adaptation, preserving the cognitive legacy of predecessors. Knowledge also survives through pattern recognition and abstraction. Observations of natural cycles, astronomical phenomena, and ecological interactions are encoded in repetitive rituals, symbols, and practical practice. These patterns persist across generations, enabling successors to reconstruct understanding even in the absence of explicit documentation. The resilience of knowledge lies not only in artifacts, but in the human capacity to interpret, abstract, and apply enduring principles under shifting circumstances. The survival of knowledge through catastrophe demonstrates a fundamental property of human inheritance. Insight persists when it is valued, encoded, and applied. Successors inherit the cumulative results of trial, observation, and adaptation, benefiting from the foresight, ingenuity, and resilience of predecessors. Humanity stands on a foundation forged not only in triumph, but in survival, carrying forward the lessons encoded in structures, symbols, genes, and memory. The legacy of knowledge endures, guiding successors through challenges and shaping the evolution of civilization across time. Knowledge has never existed in isolation. Across time and space, ideas, techniques, and observations formed intricate networks that connected civilizations, communities, and individuals. These networks allowed insights to propagate, adapt, and persist across generations, creating a web in which the achievements of one society became the foundation for the next. Trade, migration, conquest, and communication facilitated this continuity, ensuring that no innovation or cultural practice was entirely lost. Even in the face of environmental or societal disruption, humanity inherits this web in its entirety, carrying forward the threads woven by countless predecessors into a tapestry of understanding and progress. Trade routes were among the earliest conduits for interconnected knowledge. From the rivers of Mesopotamia to the Silk Roads of Asia, exchange networks allowed tools, agricultural practices, and artistic techniques to spread across regions. Successive generations of artisans, farmers, and engineers inherited not only objects, but the underlying principles of their creation and application. These interactions facilitated cross-pollination of ideas, ensuring that knowledge developed in one corner of the world could be refined, adapted, and applied in distant regions, amplifying its persistence and impact. Migration amplified the web of inherited knowledge. Communities displaced by famine, conflict, or environmental change carried technologies, rituals, and cultural memory to new lands. As populations intermingled, knowledge was transmitted, combined, and expanded, forming hybrid systems of understanding. Successors in these new regions inherited a synthesis of insights, shaped by multiple predecessors, enabling innovation that was both rooted in tradition and responsive to new conditions. The movement of people ensured that knowledge could survive local collapse, demonstrating resilience through connectivity. Conquest and empire building functioned as another vector for preserving and transmitting knowledge. As empires expanded, they incorporated the technologies, administrative systems, and cultural practices of conquered peoples. Roads, irrigation systems, legal codes, and scientific observations were integrated, documented, and adapted to serve broader populations. Successors benefited from this aggregation, inheriting innovations from diverse sources. Even when empires fragmented, the interconnected knowledge embedded within their structures persisted, forming the foundation for future societies. Language and script facilitated the creation of intellectual networks. Written correspondence, trade records, and scholarly texts allowed ideas to cross temporal and spatial boundaries. Libraries, archives, and schools preserved knowledge, making it accessible to successors beyond the reach of immediate geography. Knowledge embedded in language formed a durable thread connecting past and future, enabling cumulative understanding and continuous refinement of both practical and conceptual insight. Humanity inherited this linguistic web, capable of encoding complex systems of thought, cultural memory, and technological principles. Scientific observation, experimentation, and record-keeping created interconnected strands across civilizations. Astronomical data, mathematical principles, and natural philosophy were shared, interpreted, and adapted by successive societies. Observers in distant regions could build upon the findings of others, forming a cumulative legacy of inquiry. This chain of understanding, woven across cultures and epochs, demonstrates that knowledge survives not as isolated discoveries, but as a collaborative, interdependent network. Successors inherit the entire structure, gaining access to layers of insight accrued over generations. Artistic expression contributes to the web of knowledge as well. Patterns, symbols, and aesthetic principles were transmitted across regions through trade, conquest, and imitation. Artworks encode information about mathematics, engineering, social hierarchy, and cosmology. Successors interpret, adapt, and expand upon these symbolic systems, ensuring that artistic knowledge remains alive and accessible across centuries. The interconnectedness of visual culture demonstrates how creativity functions as both memory and instruction, preserving lessons in form, structure, and meaning. Technological innovation spread along these same networks. Metallurgy, ceramics, weaving, navigation, and agricultural methods traveled across continents, adapted to local resources and needs. Successors inherited these innovations not merely as objects, but as systems of knowledge, principles, methods, and reasoning that could be modified, recombined, and extended. The continuity of technological understanding illustrates the resilience of knowledge when embedded within a broad, interconnected web. Religious and ceremonial systems formed another layer of interconnection. Myths, rituals, and cosmological frameworks traveled alongside trade and migration, influencing distant cultures while preserving core teachings. Successors inherited both the symbolic content and the functional wisdom embedded within these systems: social cohesion, environmental awareness, and practical instruction embedded in ritual practice. The persistence of religious and ceremonial knowledge demonstrates the durability of ideas transmitted across a web of interconnected societies. Education and mentorship reinforced the network of inherited knowledge. Apprenticeships, scholarly instruction, and community-based learning ensured that the principles underlying tools, technologies, and social practices were transmitted intact. Successors received not only instruction but the methodological framework for observation, analysis, and application. This pedagogical continuity enabled knowledge to remain active, adaptable, and cumulative, sustaining innovation and cultural memory across generations. Even environmental observation and adaptation form a web-linking predecessor societies. Techniques for irrigation, terrace farming, flood control, and resource management spread across regions, providing successive generations with strategies refined over centuries. Knowledge of environmental patterns, combined with human ingenuity, allowed successors to anticipate challenges, mitigate risks, and expand the possibilities of civilization. The interconnected nature of this information demonstrates that survival and progress depend upon a networked inheritance rather than isolated discoveries. Ultimately, the interconnected web of predecessor knowledge is a living legacy. Every tool, text, ritual, and structure is a node in a vast, dynamic network that stretches across geography and time. Humanity inherits this web as a coherent system, capable of sustaining insight, guiding innovation, and informing adaptation. The persistence, resilience, and reach of knowledge across generations illustrate that no civilization exists in isolation. Successors inherit the cumulative wisdom of countless predecessors, interconnected through observation, creativity, and shared experience, forming the foundation upon which the present and future are built.